Mecca Flats tells the tragic yet common story of the gentrification, questionable legislature, and community erasure wrought by expanding universities. What once covered more than 2 acres of land in the Chicago's South Side Bronzeville neighborhood and housed over 1,000 residents now lies demolished beneath the campus foundation of Illinois Institute of Technology.
Like 1945 to 1960, which was this period which had so many important aspects of what I would say is the American century, from improv comedy to Playboy magazine to the blues and gospel music. The idea of it was to be this fabulous new kind of building for the World's Fair. But the problem is that its location was terrible. It was near the stockyards, which you could still smell. The train tracks were right next to it, so it never took off as it was. And over the years, it had kind of gone downhill. It was a huge building. It was expensive to take care of. It was built for upper middle class white folks. And so it ended up, and it required this maintenance. It had these big skylights on it, right? Have you seen those pictures? And by the time those photos are taken in the 1950s in Life magazine, no one's cleaned them forever. So there's this kind of weird milky haze inside this building that should have been full of light.
They wanted middle-class white people. They got, working class and some middle-class white people, and they had then white immigrants, and then they had black folks living there. And so, a clear, every census, you're seeing too that they have more and more units because they've shrunk others down by dividing them up. And so that itself, I bet, it would be nice to see exactly how they were divided up. But it would not change the overall arc, which seems to be denser, less well-maintained, less nice in that sense.
IIT had this whole plan to just buy up the neighborhood, which they did. They bought it up. There's a great map that shows kind of what they've bought up to a certain point. And, IIT now owns this building, which they don't want to own, they want to tear down. And the question is, what do you do with the people who are there? And relocation is, I think, the huge word here, because I've never read any plan about any kind of major eminent domain and urban renewal thing that doesn't talk about relocation. No one ever follows it up, and there's very little kind of hard numbers. And there's an interesting photo, which you may have seen, of the community kind of at a community meeting. Where they're kind of protesting the whole thing. And it's, people in suits, men and women who are dressed for this, kind of for church almost, to have this meeting. And so clearly there was still a community feeling there, an ownership of the place and a desire to make it work as a home. And basically IIT really let it go to rot.
Remember urban renewal and all that crazy stuff? Well, they loved aerial photographs, right? Why? It was way easier to look at, wipe away entire neighborhoods if you could not hear people on the ground, see people on the ground actually conducting real lives. And this kind of, diabolic act of just, wiping away neighborhoods, it was, I think, made that much more easy by people looking at these aerial views and not being in situ, right?
So many of these, especially African-American neighborhoods, were demolished so that American universities could expand. And that's a very uncomfortable story for a lot of people to sit with.
Construction on the Illinois Institute of Technology campus recently exposed a slice of Chicago's buried past, and our Amanda Vinicky brings it to life.
A literal architectural crown, Mies van der Rohe's SR Crown Hall, stands in its glassy modern glory on the campus of the Illinois Institute of Technology. The SR Crown Hall replaced what's come to be viewed as another architectural masterpiece, the Mecca. Recently uncovered from the old Mecca site, a fork, a harmonica, a marble, as well as mosaics and other tiles that helped to make the Mecca a marvel.
One of the things we found was this bottle of aspirin, and it's a bottle, we could look at the code on the bottom. But this idea that, this painkiller, right, was left behind, it's kind of evocative of the sorts of labor and occupational categories the people who lived in the Mecca were in. And, a lot of times the people who were doing blue collar work maybe had pain. This idea too of just that you're leaving quickly, or you're leaving in an unplanned way, in a way that you don't want to, where you would leave like a full bottle of aspirin behind. That's not a cheap thing to just toss away.
Generally speaking, there is not enough attention to how new designs can engage with existing conditions. It was unheard of to just start with a tabula rasa. So in order to avoid tabula rasa approaches to our cultural heritage, we must start within the studio classrooms to educate our own future architects that they must be mindful and actually not only tolerate, but actually embrace the idea of adaptive reuse and adding on to existing sites.
But it's important to understand now that IIT is a major escalator school. It is mostly students of color or immigrants. It is a school of first generation kids. I mean, it is a school that's bringing people up in the community. And so I guess I try to look towards a kind of long arc, bending slowly towards some sort of justice. But I think they have learned and are still learning to bring that past back